Scarlet Plague by Jack London. Chapter 1. The way led along upon what had once been the embankment of a railroad, but no train had run upon it for many years. The forest on either side swelled up the slopes of the embankment and crested across it in a green wave of trees and bushes. The trail was as narrow as a man's body and was no more than a wild animal runway. Occasionally, a piece of rusty iron showing through the forest mould advertised that the rail and the ties still remained. In one place, a 10-inch tree bursting through at a connection had lifted the end of a rail clearly into view. The tie had evidently followed the rail, held to it by the spike long enough for its bed to be filled with gravel and rotten leaves, so that now the crumbling, rotten timber thrust itself up at a curious slant. Old as the road was, it was manifest that it had been of the monorail type. An old man and a boy travelled along this runway. They moved slowly, for the old man was very old. A touch of palsy made his movements tremulous, and he leaned heavily upon his staff. A rude skull cap of goatskin protected his head from the sun. From beneath this fell a scant fringe of stained and dirty white hair. A visor ingeniously made from a large leaf shielded his eyes, and from under this he peered at the way of his feet on the trail. His beard, which should have been snow white, but which showed the same weather wear and camp stain as his hair, fell nearly to his waist in a great tangled mass. About his chest and shoulders hung a single mangy garment of goatskin. His arms and legs, withered and skinny, betokened extreme age, as well as did their sunburn and scars and scratches betoken long years of exposure to the elements. The boy who led the way, checking the eagerness of his muscles to the slow progress of the elder, likewise wore a single garment, a ragged-edged piece of bearskin, with a hole in the middle through which he'd thrust his head. He could not have been more than 12 years old. Tucked coquettishly over one ear was the freshly severed tail of a pig. In one hand he carried a medium-sized bow and arrow. On his back was a quiverful of arrows. From a sheath hanging about his neck on a thong projected the battered handle of a hunting knife. He was as brown as a berry and walked softly with almost a cat-like tread. In marked contrast with his sunburned skin were his eyes, blue, deep blue, but keen and sharp as a pair of gimlets. They seemed to bore into aft about him in a way that was habitual. As he went along he smelled things as well, his distended, quivering nostrils carrying to his brain an endless series of messages from an outside world. Also, his hearing was acute and had been so trained that it operated automatically. Without conscious effort, he heard all the slight sounds in the apparent quiet, heard and differentiated and classified these sounds, whether they were of the wind rustling the leaves, of the humming bees and gnats, of the distant rumble of the sea that drifted to him only in lulls, or of the gopher just under his foot shoving a pouch full of earth into the entrance of his hole. Suddenly he became alertly tense. Sound, sight and odour had given him a simultaneous warning. His hand went back to the old man, touching him, and the pair stood still. Ahead, at one side of the top of the embankment, arose a crackling sound, and the boy's gaze was fixed on the tops of the agitated bushes. Then a bear, a grizzly, crashed into view, and likewise stopped abruptly at the sight of humans. He did not like them and growled querulously. Slowly the boy fitted the arrow to the bow, and slowly he pulled the bowstring taut, but he never removed his eyes from the bear. The old man peered from under his green leaf at the danger and stood as quietly as the boy. For a few seconds this mutual scrutinizing went on. Then, the bear betraying a growing irritability, the boy, with a movement of his head, indicated that the old man must step aside from the trail and go down the embankment. The boy followed, going backward, still holding the bow taut and ready. They waited till a crashing among the bushes from the opposite side of the embankment told them the bear had gone. The boy grinned as he led back to the trail. "A big 'un, Granzer," he chuckled. The old man shook his head. "They get thicker every day," he complained, in a thin, undependable falsetto. "Who'd have thought I'd live to see the time when a man would be afraid of his life on the way to the cliff house? When I was a boy, Edwin, men and women and little babies used to come out here from San Francisco by tens of thousands on a nice day, and there weren't any bears then, no sir. They used to pay money to look at them in cages, they were that rare." "What is money, Granzer?" Before the old man could answer, the boy recollected and triumphantly shoved his hand into a pouch under his bearskin and pulled forth a battered and tarnished silver dollar. The old man's eyes glistened as he held the coin close to them. "I can't see," he muttered. "You look and see if you can make out the date, Edwin." The boy laughed. "You're a great Granzer," he cried delightedly, "always making believe them little marks mean something." The old man manifested an accustomed chagrin as he brought the coin back again close to his own eyes. 2012, he shrilled, and then fell to cackling grotesquely. That was the year Morgan V was appointed President of the United States by the Board of Magnates. It must have been one of the last coins minted, for the Scarlet death came in 2013. Lord, think of it! 60 years ago, and am I the only person alive today that lived in those times? Where did you find it, Edwin?